Mervin,
Right.
how are you this evening?
Good evening, Mashad.
You now can officially call yourself a three-time published author because I was telling them that you had published two books previously, both published by Crest Publishers. So I just want to make it very clear and send a shout out to Crest Publishers. Kelly Hari Prasad, you can follow her at ironically.kelly and Crest Publishers on Instagram and Facebook. Mervin's first book, Book of Dreams, was his very first book, and his second book, Dreams of Life. And now he's been featured in the Multi Marketing Anthology 2024's three-time published author. For those viewers who have been on multi marketing for a while, you have seen Mervin Francis before. More than one occasion, he has been featured on all of our platforms. You have seen him. But for those uninitiated, Mervin, just give people a really, really brief introduction of who is Mervin Francis.
Wow. Well, if you look at it, just a simple guy out there who had the ability to take words and turn them into poetry. Come from humble beginnings, and values thought, I think, is what we tend to use in life, and poetry is my escape route. Currently work for Toyota. I'm a production manager there at Toyota, and writing poetry has always been my dream, my passion. Growing up, I used to spend a lot of time doing poetry for friends, doing poetry for school projects, and I've never dreamt that I would actually be. Thank you for reminding me, because up until today, I was still classifying myself as a twice published author. Well, now I have to say three times published author. So yeah, dreams change in life as long as you continue pursuing a dream. In my case, was writing poetry.
And yeah, right now you are a three-time published author, but I believe in the future you are going to be a four-time published author. But we're going to get to that in just a little bit. I want the viewers to stay tuned to find out exactly why I'm saying that. But for those who also didn't see your first interview, just give us a brief introduction on how you started writing poetry, because I understood, and from your first interview, you did say that Book of Dreams was actually a notebook that you had, and you eventually evolved it into a published book. So just give us a brief intro on how that happened. How did you get into writing poetry?
Okay, for me, expressing myself, I hated writing long stories. And although I studied history in school, which is weird, I always try to sum it up as best with all the important knowledge or important points. So for me, poetry became a snapshot of what I can write, maybe a long letter to somebody, but I turn it into poetry and then I just shorten it down so that I can get the gist of what I'm trying to say. So yes, you are right. The Book of Dreams was actually a hardcover notebook, and I used to scribble a lot back in the days and jot down my thoughts. And if I come across something that I feel like is exciting, that I want to express, and I used to write it down, and then eventually I had a collection of over, I think it was 30 poems, and as Kelly Haripasa from Crest Publishers, when we first met during our interview, the first thing she said to me when she read my poetry was that it was very whimsical. So yeah, so back in the days, everything for me was more fun, and I always looked up to the high points of life. And so therefore, the first, if you look at, if you read my book, the first book, it's all play on words, play on emotions, but it's the good, fun type of emotions.
For people who want to read your poetry, what do you base your poetry on? Is it something that has to inspire you? Do you look at something and then it just sparks in your mind? How do you come up with your poetry? What do you base it on?
The one poem is actually from Dreams of Life, and the second poem that is from the next book that I'm busy working on. So people actually have the opportunity of seeing something from my next book featured in the 2024 Anthology of Poetry. Sorry, Multi-Marketing's 2024 Anthology. The poetry that I write is about life. You see, the thing is that we all go through a lot of different types of emotions, different types of events. We have death, we have births, we have birthdays, we have anniversaries. Then there's Valentine's Day that comes in. And I look at poetry, how best to evolve all of this type of engagement with people, how to interact where somebody has these emotions, but they feel like they are lost or they are alone and there's nobody else to actually share those emotions with. So the poetry that I write it's actually out of my comfort zone at times where I can actually put myself in the third person and write it the way I would perceive that they are actually thinking. And I've actually brought tears to people's eyes through the poems that I've written. And I've actually seen it, and it actually like startled me. And there's a poem in Dreams of Life where I've written about my brother. He's passed on. So somebody read this poem as soon as she took the book. Within I think 5 minutes, she read the first poem, and she was in tears. And it says it just brought back the memories of her brother who has passed away as well. So we have these emotions, but we think that these emotions that we have are just strictly ours. However, out there, there's so many that have the same feelings, go through the same emotions, go through the same things in life. And it's good that they get to see and feel that other people are feeling the same thing that they are feeling. So for me, that for me is like what I want to get out and share with the people.
Okay. How have the people around you reacted to the fact that you are now a 3-time and soon to be a 4-time published author?
Well, at the moment, I think when we last spoke, you have done my printing of both my books, and FYI, that was the third print that we had gone through. So the first two prints, which were 100 copies each, were all basically, I think on the Book of Dreams was 200 sold. Dreams of Life, 180 copies sold. So, and that was just purely due to my own marketing and my own sales as a self-published author, which tells me that with engagement with people that are actually doing marketing and distribution when it comes to books, poetry do not sell that much. And the fact that I've actually sold that much copies of my own without even getting into a bookstore or getting into like the Amazons and things like that means that I've actually achieved quite a lot in that. So at the moment, a lot of my readers that have actually purchased the first two copies, the first two editions, are looking for the next one. And I think when I mentioned about being featured in the anthology, there were people who were actually asking me for the website. So I think I have managed to have a good fan base out there now, with close on to over 300 people. And that for me is amazing. The fact that I touched those many people's lives. And it's not that only, because what's happening is that the books are also being bought by an adult. And then it's their children that are actually reading these books. I had a 7-year-old child who had a project in school that did one of my poems when she was asked to do a project. She says she was given pick an author to do I think it was a reading session, and she actually chose my poem. She actually read it out during this thing, and it was like for me like, and she was only 7 years old. So yeah, if I can get to 7-year-old child, means that the poetry that I'm writing is not just based on adults; it's for anybody.
Exactly. It's for everybody and anybody. And the fact that you've actually reached a 7-year-old fan who is, and normally 7-year-old children are not typically the children who would read poetry, and yet a 7-year-old child has chosen you as the author they would rather read a poem of. And that means, wow, you actually are a celebrity in your own right. Really, you are a celebrity. That is what you well, that is what you are. So you mentioned, we mentioned earlier, you published your first two books via Crest Publishers, right? And this is obviously your first publication through multi-marketing. So a
Correct.
bit of a two-part question, because I think people want to know. We have followers on multi-marketing who always want to know the author's perspective on getting published. So two-part question. The first part of my question is, how was your experience publishing your books with the Crest Publishers? And the second part of the question is, when you came to multi-marketing for bookstore distribution and marketing on places such as Amazon, how has your experience been with multi-marketing? So the experience with Crest Publishers and multi-marketing, offering two very different things, but with the same goal of getting your book out there.
Okay, so with the Chris Publishers, at the time when I did set up an interview with Kelly, I was amazed for a young girl to actually have that much of talent in terms of understanding an author's perspective, and the fact that she actually chose to publish my book. Well, that blew me away because I write poetry. I like writing poetry, but I never expected that the reception of it would have been that high. So, press publishers has actually been pivotal in terms of me being where I am at the moment in terms of my writing. The editing that they've done, the advice that I've received with Kelly, they were all on point. She's been supportive in terms of interviews that I've been to. She set up my first book launch. So marketing in terms of papers, she was very, can I say, on the ball with it. And even after that, I even had an opportunity to write an article. The first time in my life, write an article that was actually published in a magazine, and this magazine was for the Council, Consulate General of India. So prior to his tenure of leaving, he set up a magazine, and they've had like different authors to do articles to feature in this magazine. And Kelly had actually given me the baton. She said, "Mervin, here's a challenge for you. Let's see what you can do." And it was published. And yeah, that's something I don't even talk about much. It's because I think that alone is another published item or book that I featured in. But what Kelly has done is that she's driven, and as a matter of fact, when I wanted to look at also push into getting to stores and getting into the bookstores as well, Rashad Khan name popped up, and at that time, I didn't know about multi-marketing. So he says to me, the best man for this job is Noshad. And he gave me my contact number. And that's when my interaction then moved to collaborating with multi-marketing. And I remember my first time that I met you, Noshad. I just felt warm because you were a to a person who kind of like just rocked up there, dressed in your cities, and I actually had to ask. Okay, I knew your face because I've seen it before, but I had to ask you a question: what role do you have in this multi-marketing? And the response was, "I'm the CEO." I said, "Okay, cool." It's like that. That that kept me in line with the fact that I am on the same level in terms of where I am. I don't. You can call me a celebrity, call me a rock star. It comes to poetry. To me, I'm just somebody who's sharing positive vibes, uh, giving joy. And now the platform that I'm sitting in with marketing, it now takes me into a different dimension. Whereas Press Publishers is my publishing house, uh, multi-marketing has become part of my distribution. In terms of loyalties, this is my two uh, loyalty banners that I have right now. Is Press Publishers on one side and multi-marketing on the other side. And hopefully, as we proceed, there may be some new changes or turns between we collaborating more, which is a good thing. So for me, it's a plus plus, both having Kelly and then having you on the other side. And what I picked up is that the interaction between you two guys in terms of how you collaborate between two publishing houses is also, for me, I think it's phenomenal that you guys have such good interaction.
Now we're going to be looking into the future of your poetry. So, like I mentioned, soon to be 4-time published author. And the question I usually ask authors at this point, authors usually don't publicize very often that they're going to be publishing another book, but you've been quite vocal about it. And I usually at this point ask authors, can readers of your poetry in this anthology expect to see you in future anthologies and writing future books? But now I'm going to ask you this question because we already know you're publishing a 4th book. Readers can expect more poetry out of you. So just give them an idea of what to expect from your forthcoming 3rd solo anthology.
Well, I remember you asked the question about writing whimsical poetry, the second book being a little bit more in depth. In terms of that, is that when you look at life and the challenges that we have in this life, we tend to not look at it too much in terms of everything is just too happy. As much as you want to make it too happy, it does have its ups and downs and its challenges. And I've actually written a poem in my second book from a lady's perspective. And I think we've done. I mentioned this in our interview. So, how to change yourself? How to integrate whimsical? How to integrate sadness? How to integrate just the fact that you are breathing? And I used to turn out poems in about 5 to 10 minutes. That's the passion that I had, and that was the gift that I've been blessed with. And I thank God for that every day, and having that day. But what I've done is, like, if I start a poem now, I do not do that where I want to write it in 5 to 10 minutes anymore. I want to unpack it a little bit more. I want it to have that little bit of a twist and turn from happy, sad, but not in a sad kind of a way, but in a way that will bring a little bit comfort to somebody, a little bit more, get them to smile. Don't think that although we go through these things and there's nothing we can do. Take, for example, death. There's nothing you can do to stop death from happening. And as much as we say we are prepared for death, we are never prepared. We are never prepared for death. And how do you go on? How do you move from that? So I try to keep digging into these things. And then you get homeless people. And I wrote a poem about a homeless person. But the poem is not about that homeless person being homeless. That poem is about me learning from an homeless person that life is not what you think it is by seeing somebody and consider them as being homeless. There's a lot behind what they're going through. And if you take the time, listen, and watch, and you will find that, there's things hidden behind there that you think that your life is better than that person. No, it's not. So that's coming up in the next book. And yes, there is a plot book that's coming up, seeing that now I'm a 3rd published author, thanks to multi-marketing. So yes, fourth book is definitely on.
And as a four-time published author, what advice would you give to other aspiring poets, writers, authors out there who are wanting to be authors, but they're on the fence? Now that you've been published twice over, thrice over, soon to be four times over, what advice would you give in your position now to someone who either hasn't published yet or is wanting to publish or is going to publish? What advice would you give to them from a perspective of an author, writer, poet?
Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on being able to share that beautiful messages that you have within. Um, it shouldn't be hidden. These are gems that you think that you want to keep it hidden, and it turns into something like gold. It doesn't. The only time it turns into something that's valuable is when you start sharing it with people. When people get to understand, get to see, get to read it. So you must always remember, it's not about you. Your poetry is powerful. It's same like music. How many times will you sit and listen to a song because you love that song? Every single day you can listen to it. Trust me, poetry is the same. You can read a poem in 10 different moods, and at 10 times that poem would mean something different to you. But it's the same poem. But the fact that if you do not share, you do not want to, because you're afraid to take a chance, uh, well, they say God gives you a gift, He gives you a talent. If you do not use it, it gets wasted. You cannot go up when you pass on and say, I could have, I should have, I could have, I should have. No. Best thing is take that chance. Do what you think you want to unleash there. You're gonna fall. It's not easy. First book I published in 2020. Second book was within the year in 2021. Now I'm sitting in 2024. 3 times published in 2024. I've had my first ever interview thanks to Chris Publisher, where I was invited to a book launch at the Durban Municipal Library. Now, those chances would never have came if I had sat back and said to myself, "No, let me just write it in my keep on writing in my scrapbook, and that is good for me." Now, here I'm sitting talking about my fourth book. Why? Because I did not let my dreams go, and I didn't let the dream of sharing it with others go. So always think, you will write it, you may not enjoy it as soon as you write it, dissect it, you will see that will turn into a gem for somebody. Even if 2 people read it, the pleasure that you will get is that 2 people read it and enjoyed it. That's gold dust.
Indeed. Wow, that is truly inspirational. Like those words, I'm sure it's going to touch an aspiring author, poet, writer, whoever it is out there, and make them want to achieve their goals and dreams and not let it die. And that's the most important thing. So, I mean, we've talked about your 3 published books, your upcoming book. There's always a question I do like to ask, even if it's not within the writing realm. What do you think the future holds for Mervin Francis? What do you want to achieve going forward?
I want to touch a million hearts, people to read it. I'm not saying that I want to sell 1 million copies. I'm just saying that if I touch 1 million people's hearts, just by listening to somebody or reading it from somebody or seeing it somewhere, for me, that's fantastic. We had, I think, Mother's Day that just went by, and I did a poem for the church for Mother's Day, and we shared it amongst all the women in church. And a friend of mine had it. He used it in his church for the mothers in his church. And I've shared it, I think I've shared it with you as well. I've shared it to just about anybody and at no cost. Just to get the fact that it touched hearts. When the first person read it and they told me, you know what, Marvin, this thing is dynamic. I said, you know what? If you felt this way here, why not let others feel this way? And the poem about it, and the poem is like, although it's Mother's Day, it was never targeted at a biological mother. I had to actually stop and explain this to somebody. I said, if you read the poem, it has nothing to do with a biological mother. It's like you got so many mother figures out there. And it's always good to acknowledge them and share with them and show them that, you know what, we truly love and honor and respect the fact that you could actually stand up and say, you know what, I do not have a child, but I look after you. I look after you as my child. And the acknowledgement that goes back to them to say, well, you know what, yes, we appreciate you. That for me is priceless. So yes, it's not about the money, it's about making a person laugh, smile, cry, tears of joy. That for me is an achievement on its own.
A roller coaster of emotions, if you will. For those who want to follow Mervin Francis, you are on Instagram. You can find him at Mervin M. Francis on Instagram. On Facebook, I believe it's Mervin Mark Francis on
That's
Facebook. Right. And I also believe that you have a TikTok. I think it's
Mervin M.
or something. Mervin M.
Mervin
yes. M. Yeah, Mervin M on TikTok. And of course, if you guys want to publish a copy of either Book of Dreams, Dreams of Life, or of course the multi-marketing anthology, which features almost 20 poets and short story writers from across South Africa, you can get your copies of any of these books on either Amazon if you're outside of South Africa. Inside of South Africa, you can get it on mmstore.co.za. So right now, I want to give people a taste, a sample of your poetry so that they are encouraged to purchase the multi-marketing anthology, read your poetry, read the poetry of other authors. And even if they love your poetry that much, obviously, they can get a hand on any of your other books as well. So for the viewers who are watching, while they think of questions to write, and guys, any questions in the comment section below, we will be doing a short Q&A if you have any questions for Mervin Francis at the end of this interview. But while you guys are writing the questions, Mervin Francis right now is going to read one of his poems. Mervin, when you're ready, any of your poems, take it away.
Okay. I think we've had this discussion before where you told me about you're going to get me to read a poem out there. And my go-to poem was always The Rose. I think I've done this quite often in the features, but I think I'm going to change it a little. I think I'm just going to throw in a different scenario. About this poem that I'm going to read, firstly, in 2022, I was invited by Zini M. Ramshla Duzana Fair, and I was busy doing my marketing there for my books. And I met Mrs. Rajbansi and her future daughter at that time. We discussed, she actually purchased my books. She was eager and interested in trying to, the fact that, you know, a local Indian writer or author is being showcased. And at the time when we had finished, and then Zinium was actually my PRO, said to me, Mervin, I think maybe what you can do is write a poem about Mrs. Rajbansi. So Zinium is my slave driver. She gives me all the challenges, and hence the reason why part of the name in the book is called Challenges, because all those challenges that she has given to me. And I started writing it, but for some reason or the other, the poem never clicked. I just couldn't write it. I just couldn't finish it. And it so happened that in 2023, so that was the end of 2020, it was October 2022, and it went on. And towards the beginning of 2023, it was a sad occasion because the young lady that I met was involved in a car a car accident. So Mrs. Rajbansi actually lost her son and this young lady. And I said to myself, I need to send or share something with her. And I said, let me just scroll through the net to see what's a good saying you get from, no, first from the sympathy point of view to share with her. And just dawned on me, and I said to myself, but you are a twice published author. Why are you looking for somebody else's words to share? Why don't you do a poem? So I wrote this poem out, and when I thought it, and remember it was like within, I think it was within that day, the thought came into my head to do it. And I had written that poem within that day. And then I sent it out to CDM. And I said to Zinat, please have a look at this. I know we want to send a message to Mrs. Rajbansi. I think that would be a fitting message to send to her. So the inspiration behind this poem was actually Mrs. Rajbansi at the time, to be quite honest. And I think Zinium would be able to attest to that there. So what I did notice about it as well is the title is called Loved Ones Lost. So recently we've been having a lot of this deaths, and we're losing a lot of people around us. So this poem is actually from Life, Dreams and Challenges, book number 4. So here goes, guys. It's never an easy thing to be able to understand how one is affected when loved ones are lost. But one thing rings true is that the pain that captures our hearts comes at a very high cost. There are those beautiful moments that we share, which runs rampant through our mind. We close our eyes hoping it's a dream, and when we awaken, our loved ones are doing fine. But that hope is distant, but the truth is what stares us full in our face, knowing that new memories will never be formed. No, not here in this place. Now we need to embrace the days that are still to come, days when we will need an abundance of strength to weather the storm, a storm that fills our hearts with endless emotions and unwanted pain. For this tragedy has robbed us of sharing happiness again. Fear not, for the heavens have made new angels, and that I believe to be true. All I ask is to take solace in all the beautiful memories that were shared with you.
Very well written. Very, very well written poem. And guys, you can get your, if you see at the bottom, it's in his book right next to his lovely picture right here. It says, this poem is from Life, Dreams and Challenges by Mervin Francis. So that is going to be in his upcoming 3rd solo debut, 4th published book. And you can read more of his poetry right here in the Multi-Marketing Anthology, along with other authors and short story writers also in this book. And if you want more of Mervin Francis poetry, you can't wait for his 4th book to come out. You have Book of Dreams and Dreams of Life available on mmstore.co.za. Grab yourself a copy. I do see one question in the comment section below. Guys who are watching, if you have any questions for Mervin Francis, please do drop it in the comment section below before we conclude this interview. So Mervin, the question in the comment section for you from the viewer FE 2024 20 July, it says, what's your favorite poem of all time?
Well, my favorite poems, I'm going to have to say, is The Wedding March, and that will be, you can find that in the my first book, Book of Dreams. It started off as a poem back in the days. I think I was still single at that time. And what happened was I was preparing for a wedding, my wedding, and the poem that I'd written was actually The Wedding March, and the plan was to read it at the time. My wife at that time didn't know what I had planned, because when it came to the day, I ended up singing this song. Singing this poem. I turned it into a song. I actually sang it as she walked down the aisle. So I changed the scenario of the wedding a little, and a lot of people crying. I was like scared. Why are they crying? Did I do something wrong? And then I realized nostalgia was actually what got the better of them. So yeah, very much. That's my favorite, all-time favorite.
That's your all-time favorite poem of yourself that you've written. Is there any poem that you yourself haven't written that you've maybe come across or read that you would say is your favorite, or maybe inspired you to write poetry?
No, I'm not gonna. I don't do that. The thing is, like, even if you look at my poetry, I don't. How can I say it? Memorize them. Um, I try to leave it as authentic as possible, because what happens is I do not want to cloud it with any other poem that I'm going to be writing. So I do not follow any other poet. I read poetry. I will pick up a poem and read it, but not really. The thing that actually inspired me was the greeting cards that I think we used to get at CNA, Hallmark, greeting cards. So for every occasion, they always had some beautiful poetry that was there on that. And for me, I thought I used to buy blank cards. Beautiful picture on it, inside blank. Write my own story, or write my own poem. So that, if you say yes, that inspired me into terms of pursuing writing on a full-time basis. Because Hallmark was my place that I needed to go. Unfortunately, life has its own ways of changing things, and didn't get to get a call back from Hallmark. But yeah, having a published books, I think I'll have to take that.
Don't worry, you're not the only person who's reached out to a bigger company and has been left on the red receipt without any response. There's a lot.
No, I didn't reach out. No, I didn't reach out. It was a pipe dream. It was a pipe dream. So I didn't actually reach out to them. I think Kelly was the first person that actually reached out to actually have any publishing done.
Okay. All right. So I don't see any more questions in our comments section. So before we wrap this up, Mervin, do you have any concluding remarks, final things you want to say before we wrap up this interview?
Just about the 2024 book of Anthology. I've actually gone through a few, and I've seen you've got, I think it's over 20 or close to 20 authors. Yeah. And one thing I must say is I commend you in terms of what you are doing here. I think quite a few of these authors, they would not be seen or put out there if you haven't actually come to do a compilation of something like this here. Okay, I've had the luxury of writing enough poems that could actually turn into a book. Not every author out there has that opportunity to maybe write enough stories or short stories or to get into to do a complete book. At the moment, for my third book, I've actually got close on 60 poems that I've completed. But for me, I'm still not thinking that 60 poems is what I want to publish. I want to publish maybe 90 poems. Same as what I've published in the second book, because the first book was 44 poems. Second book had 90 poems, which was Book of Dreams. So the third book, which is yes, Life, Dreams, and Challenges, that is where I want to also add at least 90 poems, so that there's more for them to for the readers out there, not just trying to get a book sold and get the minimum number of poems into a book and say, okay, I've sold the book. I want to make sure that there is enough how can I say, fat in there. Not just fat, there's a lot meat in their bone, so that when they get to it, they get to enjoy it, they get to read a lot more. to all the authors that actually are published in this book here. Well done, guys. I am actually proud to be part of this, to be part of your journey as well. The fact that you actually chose two of my poems to be featured in here, that for me as well was like, okay, Noshad has seen something outside of what we've been talking about. So my poetry has gotten to him as well. So yes. So to those authors, I think this is goes to the question that you asked. Those who want to rise and don't have that opportunity to write, or don't feel that this year is testimony to what can happen. You may not be able to put a book together, but there are people out there like you that can actually help them by taking some of their stories, creating it with other authors, and they can actually become a published author. And then kudos to you, my man. I really, really do appreciate and like what you're doing.
Yeah, I think I explained on Aubrey's interview that we did last week how the anthology came around to be. If you guys didn't catch that interview, make sure you catch it. It's on YouTube. But it was basically to get or give authors an opportunity and a chance to get published, whereas previously they wouldn't have the opportunity to, or those authors, they don't have the budget to publish a fully fledged book. They pay a small portion and they can still be published with other authors. Authors that don't have as much poetry to compile a full book, such as Dreams of Life or Book of Dreams, they just maybe have one or two poems. They can put it in the anthology and get their word of their work out there and still call themselves a published author. That was the whole idea behind the anthology. So yeah, so that's just basically a short of that. If you guys want to read about it, like I've got the full lowdown. It's here in the foreword at the beginning of the anthology. So if you want to read more about it, get yourself a copy of this book. Mervin Francis's poetry is in there. A lot of other poets and short story writers from across South Africa in this book. Again, www.mmstore.co.za. That's where you can get yourself physical paperback like this or a soft digital copy downloaded directly to your mobile device or laptop or whatever technological device that you have that you would like it to be downloaded on. So guys, thank you again. I'd like to thank Mervin Francis for taking his time out here this evening to speak with us about technology. What was that?
Before you go, yes, poetry is my go-to. That will be my fourth published book, okay? Third on my own. But I am working on a novel, a romantic novel. So I'm trying something outside of the comfort zone in terms of just being an author of poetry. I'm trying to do a novel, which is a romance novel, which Kelly actually is on my back at the moment because I have sold her the story line in terms of what I wanted to do. So there is book number 5 that is coming, hopefully. Okay, cat's out of the bag, 10 chapters into the novel. So I've done a lot of work in terms of that. And that's whilst I was still, that's parallel to the poems that I'm still writing. So I'm hoping to get that book completed before the end of this year as well. So I want to maybe do 2 books published this year, poetry and a novel.
You do realize that if you publish another poetry book and a novel, that would make you a five-time published author. Oh my word. Mervin, you are talented. I don't know how you do it, really. I don't. I mean, poetry is one thing, and I'm not as gifted as that to write poetry. I'm more of a short story writer. I think you've seen it in the anthology. I've got a short story there. Even 2022 edition, I've got one there as well. So now you've got my attention. Now that's a book I'll be waiting to get. So guys, you heard it here first. You heard it here first. It's an exclusive of multi-marketing. Mervin Francis is writing a romance novel and his third anthology book, his fourth published book. Wow. This man is going places. Keep your eye on Mervin Francis. He is one to watch. So guys, thank you for watching. I'm sure with that news, we definitely will be seeing more of you in the future on Multi Marketing's channel to be talking about your books. So For Mervin Francis, I'm the director of multi-marketing Nosha Khan. I'd like to thank you all for joining us here tonight. We'll see you guys down the road. Peace.
Take care.